Let me share the screen. Today, let's try to learn how these connections are working with Oracle database and the components interaction, meaning when you run a SQL command, how it works inside the database, how update and how commits and those things are going to work within the database. And let's take a look at it and we'll see how the execution plans and those things also are working. I think I have uploaded the assignment. Hope you have seen it. Yeah, it's a total practical assignment that I have given. I think instructions are given. So if there are any issues, you can discuss with me. Okay, so can you all see the screen? Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, fine. Great. So let's start. The very first thing is, how do we connect to Oracle database? That's the first thing. As an end user, how we are going to connect. I think we have learned certain things up to now. We know the sys user, system user, those things we know. But let's try to understand a little bit detail now. Now, for example, let me exit from here. There is a process called listener, LSNRCTA. Listener control. This is a utility. And if you just type status, now you can see the output listener status. I just invoke listener. I just ran the command listener. It's a tool utility comes with Oracle installation. I just invoked it. I just went into the command line and it gave me the prompt, listener control prompt, and just type the status command. Now, first of all, what is a listener? Listener is a process which is running on the background of the Oracle database, which is ready to accept any incoming request. Request means what? In order to connect that request to the Oracle database. And this is how it works. Now let's say in a client server environment, now we align one-to-one connections, we align the same server now, but still here also we can, because now I used to, you may remember last day I used SQL developer. So if I connect SQL developer from Windows to Linux, so that's definitely a client server connection, because my Windows is a different host and my Linux is a different host. My database is running on Linux host. So my Windows is a different host. So I am going to make a connection from SQL developer to Linux. That means a client server connection is going to be definitely. Those are two different servers. Now, client server, when you want to connect, that means client on the client side, is that you use some tool. Now, currently, the most popular use we are using the command line SQL Plus. That is what we have been using. And on last day, I used SQL Developer. So in Oracle, we have many other tools. We can use JDeveloper, we can use Apex, we can use Cloud Control. A lot of front-end tools are there to connect to Oracle database. Now, what is going to happen? Step one, client want to connect. Then what's going to happen? On the client side, we need this information. We need username, because there has to be a user to connect. And we need the password. And finally, we need something called a connect string. I think some of you asked this question sometime back, connect string. Now, these are the information we are giving on the client side. Now, once we give this information, what's going to happen on the client side? What's going to happen? There is something called a user process getting started. A user process, or we can say it's a client process. Fine. Now, what are the information here? Now, everybody understand the username and password. That is obvious, no? But what is the connect string? I think you all can tell me. Connect string. What is the connect string?
It contains about how to connect with the database. The database name, password, username, and all of the host name things are available.
Exactly correct. Mainly it has the DB name, where's the DB name, IP address, or the host name. Another very important thing, it has a port, something called a port. So mainly this information. So for example, we can say like this. Let's say our database name is TNH19C DB. And my IP where the database is running, let's say 192.168.100.17. And the port, the default port is 1521. Default port. This is the default port. Not recommended in production. We never keep the sorry. We never keep the default port in production environment because it is a security vulnerability. For security concerns, we change the default port. But 1521 is the default port. Now, for example, in my environment, this status command will show me this port. Okay, let me make it full screen. Now, where is the port? You can see if you just closely go to these details, connecting to address, protocol, TCP, machine name, here we have the port. You can see. Yeah, and another important thing is the protocol. Yes, I didn't mention it here. You're going to have port and the protocol. Communication protocol has to be there, otherwise we are going over a network, so there has to be a communication protocol. TCP, the most common one. So we have port 1522. Even in my environment, in my machine, I have changed the default port to 1522. Now the thing is this, the client process passes this information to where? Now with this information on the client side, the relevant tool, maybe SQL developer, maybe SQL pass will initiate the client process. It has this information. Then what's going to happen? Step number two, client process sends the information. This sends the info to where? Info to server side. Now, how does it know where to send? Here we have. It tells, okay, you have to route the information to here. The connect string tells those information. First thing, which machine? This is the machine. Which database? This is. Or what? TCP. Very important. How do we get into the server? Using the port, because the channel established, the communication established via the port, that is where the packets are sent into this particular box. And how do you get in? Using the port 1521. Now you can see the listener. I mentioned the listener on the database side. Listener is listening to what? To incoming request. Incoming request from where? From the port. Now in my case, what is the port? As per this example, it is 1521. Okay, let's make it 1522 for easy explanation. Now in my case here also 1522. So all incoming requests from my database, listener is listening on 1522. That's what's going to happen. So therefore, whenever a client passes the information to this particular server, addressing this database from this port, targeting this port, this fellow, this listener is up and running at the moment. That's why the status command gives all the information, because it's up and running, and it will detect that particular incoming request is for me. Matadama request again. Why? 1522 is addressing me. That is my address, 1522. Got it? So what is step 2? Client process will send the information to server targeting the port, and step number 3 is what? Step 3, listener detects the incoming request further, and it will initiate and detects the incoming request. Let's say it will accept accept the request. That's what's going to happen. Step number 3, we'll put it there. Step number 3 up to that level. It will accept because it knows this particular details, this packet information is for me. Then what's going to happen? Step number 4, listener will initiate a process called server process. Very important. Server process. Server process. Now we had the client process. Client process is where? On the client side. Now the server process is where? On the database side. Database side. Now let's say this user, who is a user? Let's say there's a user called JP1, Japuravan. Japuravan is the user. JP Japuravan. Okay. Then what's going to happen? There will be a server process starting with the name Japuravan. Because that is the tagging. Tagging means the request came from that user. So here what's going to happen? 1 to 1. If there are 10 users, what's going to happen? 10 server processes going to start. 10 server processes. This is the default way. So therefore, we are telling by default, database is working in dedicated mode. Dedicated mode. Why dedicated? Always one user request will get the attention of a one server process, 1 to 1. 100 users, 100 server processes. That's what's going to happen. Dedicated. But this is memory consuming because each process it needs memory. We can confirm that. For example, this is the default. How do you confirm? Okay, let me exit from here. Or we can use other term, that doesn't matter. Now SQL plus, if I run this command, select server from VDollar session. VDollar session. Select my command row, select server from VDollar session. Now you can see it says dedicated, dedicated, all are dedicated, dedicated. That's the default behavior. Now why there are 50 connections? Because I can get more detail now for it. Okay, let me make it much meaningful. Now VDollar session is giving all the ongoing connections. VDollar session is a little bit of a larger view actually. Describe VDollar session. I'm going to see the columns of that particular view. We have many columns here. Now what I got only one column. What was that? Server. 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 The server column should be there somewhere here.
Enough, sir.
Enough, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, server. This is the column. So I got only this column. But you can see I can get a lot of information. I can get who is the user, connected user, and the session at the lot of information are there. Even the operating system username I can get. OS user, the process, and the machine, which machine the which program is running. So because this is a very useful and it's a, it has a lot of information. VDollar session. So let me just make it much meaningful in this way. I'll say select and okay, let's say server. I want to get username from VDollar session. I want to get who is the user as well from VDollar session. So if you go up now, because I have only 6 connections. See, it gives you that. These others are blank. Why it is blank? Because those are background processes. Because not only the users will have the connections. We learned the background process last day. Can you remember the DB writer, log writer processes, the background process? Now we have awareness on those things. We mentioned Oracle instance is collection of memory structures and background processes. Last day we learned that. So each background process also make a connection or make a session to the database. So that's why these things are blank. at the moment. But sys, of course, I have made a sys connection, so that's why I give me sys connection. All others are background because no one else at the moment, there are no additional users connected to my database. If I make another connection, it will give you another session, system or something. So anyway, so that is bootloader session. So it gives all dedicated. So this is default one-to-one connection. What is the other type of connection? I can make something called shared connections. Shared connection. Shared means what? Many users can connect to a single server process. This is shared. Now by default, this is not enabled. We have to configure this one. Depends on the requirement. It's a way of saving memory. But for DBA connection now, system those are administrator connections now. So those fellows we need dedicated connection. But for normal users, depending on the application requirement and the end user and requirement, so we can make it either dedicated or shared. But by default, everything goes under dedicated. And again, I think I mentioned this one now. I think we are querying VDOLA database last day. Okay, let me put it here. We are querying these things, right? You may remember now we have queried a lot of views. We know about VDOLA database now. We know about VDOLA instance. Okay, now we queried the VDOLA session. Even last time, I think I queried that one. So I think I mentioned this one. What is this VDOLA? VDOLA means what? Anyone? I mean, Q1 is VDOLA කියන මොකක්ද කියලා? Dynamic performance tables. අපි views කියලා කියනවා. අපි views කියලා කියමු කමක් නැහැ. Because tables are underlined. Because these VDOLAs are coming from underlined Explorer tables. We don't need to go that much. Let's say views, dynamic performance views, VDOLA. What is the specialty here? It gives the ongoing information. Ongoing means what's happening now. As of now, what's happening in the database. Data is taken from memory, from the database memory and from the control file. That is how VDOLAs are taking data to get the up-to-date information. Got it? Other than this, in Oracle database, we have data dictionary views. Data dictionary views. This is all views and tables to get the information of the database, what's happening. Now the data dictionary views, we can say table, those are tables. For example, we can say DBA underscore data underscore files. I think last day we queried that. Another one, DBA underscore table spaces. Not only DBA, we have these things, user underscore tables. Likewise, different prefixes are there. We have all underscore tables. Not only tables, all underscore indexes, all underscore views, all underscore triggers, synonyms. For each object category, we have those things. Now, what's the difference between this and this? These are not dynamic. Dynamic means these are giving somewhat old information. Take a paramount. Update nahan. It's not up to date 100%. Because if you want to make them up to date, there's a process called stats gathering in Oracle database. Stats gathering. Statics is gathering. So if we gather these stats, then what's going to happen? These tables will get refreshed. Otherwise, it will maintain somewhat old information. Somewhat old information. But for your knowledge, just get to know, to query the information in Oracle database, we have mainly two types of tables and views. VDOLAs are always giving ongoing what is happening as of now in the database. These DBA and these are normal data dictionary tables. Those are giving certain somewhat old information. I mean, without refreshing them using stats gathering, we won't be able to make them up to date. But you give information. Yes, true. If you want to see all the table spaces, you can get. Unless you add a new table space, the information is correct, is giving. Okay, if you add a new table space, sometimes you may have to gather distance to get the reflected, but that depends. That's okay. So if you want to get the latest information, you have to always query on VDOLA VDOLA views. Got it? Now, what are these prefix? You can see DBA, user, and all three prefix. DBA data file, DBA table spaces, and user tables, all tables. Now, tables, but there are two prefix. Even for indexes, we have that. I can say user indexes, all indexes, like this. This prefix will define the scope, because whenever a table says DBA, that will give the entire database information. Now, another example, I can say like this. I can say DBA underscore tables, DBA underscore tables. Now, this DBA underscore tables will give you all the tables belongs to all the users in the database. There can be more 100,000 users, no? So as a database administrator, if you want to see all the tables belongs to any user, we can query DBA tables. But if you query user tables, what will happen? Will it give all? No. It is going to give only for current session. Now let's say you have login as Japura. Japura is your user. So user tables is what? Tables belongs to Japura user only. That's it. So scope is different. That's why the prefix is different. All means what? All means tables belongs to current user plus the privilege tables. That means DBA can grant a privilege to view a table on another schema, or another user belongs to another schema. For example, now let's say he can say, DBA can say grant select like this. Last time we grant the session command, grant create session to user. Likewise, we can say grant select on system. System is the user. System dot is the user. System dot emp to Japura. Japura is the user. Now, what this will do? System is a different user, different schema. Japura is another user. I want this user to access this schema's emp table. So this command will do it. Otherwise, Japura user doesn't have privilege to view this fellow's tables unless he's a DBA. He's not a DBA, he's a normal user. So that's what. All tables will list where this fellow is privileged to use. Privilege. Now, for example, let's say you are connecting as Japura user, and he is going to try, okay, select from table name from all tables. Then what's going to happen? This table is visible for him. Why? Because he has been granted privileges. Select privilege. Got the idea? Any problems? You can ask. Scope. Clear, ne? Got it. Okay. Right. Now let's continue our explanation. Now, what was the step number 4? Now we went through 3 steps. Our step number, we want to make the client and server connection. And our step number 1 was what? We are typing username and the password and the connect string. Now we got to know what's the connect string. It has the database name, it has IP address and the protocol and the port. And we mentioned it will initiate the client process, and client process will send the information to the database side. Listener will detect that one because listener has a port, so it knows it is addressing the user request is addressing that particular listener. So because it's coming for that port, then it will detect that. Then what's going to happen? It will initiate something called a server process. That's what we learned. So from there only we went to this explanation. Got it? Dedicated then shared server process. Now currently our database is working on dedicated one-to-one. One user will always get the attention of a one dedicated server process. Step number 4. So now what's the situation? Okay, listener has initiated the server process. Now this fellow want to connect, no? Japura user want to connect now. Now we are in the middle now. So what's going to happen now? Step number 5. Step number 5 is what? Now the server process has been started, no? Server process sends the information import to, import to Oracle database, and what it does, and verifies the username and the password. You need to verify. This need to verify. And also the privileges, create session privileges to be there. Server process check with the database whether such a user exists and he can connect or not. Step 6 one. Step 6. If success, that means there's a user available and it has the privileges to connect. If success, what's going to happen? Then particular server process will get initiated. Then the connection established. Now, because the verification success, no, then it's going to happen. If success, connection established between the client and the server. That's what's going to happen. Connection established. Then the next step is what? Session starts, and the server process, Japura, will continue to process any requests from the client side. That's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Because all the SQL commands, all the SQL commands, select commands, update command has to go to this particular server process. So these are very basic steps when you want to make a connection. What's going to happen? 6 steps. Are we okay? Any questions you can ask? Client and server connection. Okay, going back to practical. Now we have the listener process, right? Let's get more details. Our listener status. You can see it tells, okay, I am listening on this port, I am listening on this machine in this port. That's what's going to happen. And further it says the details, and there is a particular file also. He maintained the information in a file called listener.tora. And you can see this listener is aware of these databases. What are databases? TNS19DB and TNS, yeah, I think only that database is aware. Yeah. What is that? Because listener first has to know what databases he is working with. Otherwise, how? Because now for listener to detect the incoming request for a particular database, first of all, he has to know he is working on this database now. So that's why at the time of database creation, if listener is up and running, what's going to happen? That database automatically get registered with the listener automatically. When you create the database, if the particular listener is up and running, database automatically get registered with that listener. If not, later we have to do the registration. Let's say when you create the database, your listener is down. It tells actually in the middle of the database creating, it is asking you, there's no listener, what should I do? Whether I should create the listener or not. A message, I am not sure whether you have experienced that one. So if there is a listener up and running, automatically registers. It also asks that one as well when you create in the database. So if the listener is down, we have to do the manual registration later. So now I can stop the listener if I want. Let's type the stop command. Stop command, it will stop. Now if I run the status command, now it will say, is it down now? TNS no listener because it's down. I stop it. I ran the stop command. Status is now down. Now it's not listening. Listening means now the incoming client request it can't detect because listener is down. So listener is a critical process in the database. If listener is down, no remote users can get connected. But the DBA can get connected because DBA is connecting from the local machine, from the same server. So if the DBA also coming as a remote user, then he also can't connect. Okay, so listener is very important. So let's start it. We can run the start command like that. So it started, but as soon as it started, it says you can notice support no services. It takes a little bit of time to detect the databases. Support no services, but earlier if you go up and see, it says it is working with these databases. Services summary. Now it knows about this. But now it says support no services because it just started. But if you refresh it again, if you again run the status command, then now it has detected and it has identified it has to work with this database because those are registered. Got the idea? The location of the file is given here, listener.tora file, listener.tora file. We have admin, network, admin, listener.tora file. If you invoke this folder, let's get into this folder and let me exit from here. I'm going to change to that folder, and if you take a look at it, okay, now I am here, and if you run the ls command, we can see listener.tora. It has other files, tnsdm.tora, those also there, but listener.tora file, that is what we are spinning at the moment. If I just list it cat listener.tora, so these are the content at the moment. It tells you the information where is listening from. Is listening from my particular machine name. My machine name is localhost.name. I haven't changed it. So host name, this is the same. You can see host name. Even in Windows, you can get the machine name. So this is my machine name. So it tells localhost it is listening from this port, and protocol is TCP, and the port is 1522. That's what it says. Default information. Clear?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So then අපි database එකකට connect වෙන හැම වෙලාවෙම listener කෙනෙක් අපි manually හදන්න ඕනද නැත්නම් ඒක automatically හැදෙනවද?
No, not always. Initially it gets creates, no. Okay, let me switch to Windows. I'm going to Windows. Let me go to services. Now this is how it appears on Windows machine. Linux on company. Let me go to services. Yeah. There are options that we have to select. It's like this. At the time of database creation, software install karna, you are going to install the software. Because there are options. When you install in the software, you can tell only to install the software. But don't do that. It's not recommended. You can select install software and create the database, both options. Select that's the best way. Then what's going to happen? It will install the software as well as it will create the database for you. But what happens if you just select only install software? It won't create the listener. So that is the problem you are going to take. If you just install only the software without creating the database, it will not create a listener by default. That's what's going to happen. So therefore, later if you try to create the database, that means now you are installing only the software, no database. Then you are later, because for you to work, you need to have database, no, otherwise no point. Then you are going to create a database. Then it will inform you there is no listener. So at that time, then you have to create the listener. Listener creation only one time activity. There is no need to every time connecting, creating a listener. Maybe in listener Windows, I have how many listeners are there? DB home, TNS listener 1, yeah, only one listener. That's okay. And then because I have two databases now. Per database, one listener. But in production environment, we are maintaining at least 2 listeners per database. Because my download local download, no one will be able to connect. So therefore, for high availability purposes and for load balancing purposes, we are maintaining minimum of 2 listeners in production.
Good.
Then okay, now you have only installed the software. You haven't created the database. So therefore, no listener. How you are going to create? Very easy. We have I think netCA. If you just type netCA, net configuration assistant. NetCA, net configuration assistant. මේක ඉතින් install වෙනු ගිහිල්ලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. I think if you are using Windows, even in Linux, you can run the netca command. If you are using Windows, you can go to Oracle installation. I think it is up. Here we have, let me check Oracle 19C. And if I go to, we can see Net Manager also there. Net Configuration Assistant. This is netca. If I click here, it'll ask me whether to launch. Yes, it will launch Net Configuration Assistant. And we can create a listener from this one. It might take a while. This one. You can see the very first option is listener configuration. And if you click next, add, because why is asking? Well, because there's a listener already available in my machine, or we can reconfigure. In your case, if you haven't created a database, if you have only installed the software, other options will be disabled for you because you are creating the listener for the first time. You continue and you give a listener name and the port. You can give the port name and you can just finish, just click. Got it? So that's the way. If you have missed the listener, if the listener is not available, get it created. Net Configuration Assistant. That's a tool. Okay. I will give try Calaban, otherwise you can always, I'll always there to help and you can reach me out. So, and yes, so try it out. Okay, so are we clear? How did it? So, person listener configuration and all. Okay, right. So that is how connection establishing happening with the Oracle database. Okay, now let's say I will make a thought practically. Okay, let me show you now. Okay, now in my case, I am in Linux. No, here I am in Linux. Okay, let me start. Okay, okay, let me take SQL developer. Oracle portal. I have a SQL developer. Okay, let me open this SQL developer. Now what I'm going to do from Windows, now SQL developer is on Windows, no? So I want to connect Windows SQL developer to my Linux environment. So it's a client server connection I'm trying to make because this is a different host, Linux is a different host, the guest OS. Okay, now this is up and running. So I have connections already. I can just simply say make new connection and try it out. Here I have the options. But before that, I need to make sure that my backend, now my database is up and running. Of course, it is up and running because we connected, no? And okay, anyway, let's verify my database first. In my database, select name from $, database. Okay, I'm in TN19DB, so I'm going to connect to this one, TN19DB. And from here, if I want to connect to TN19DB, what I need my IP address because that is where it's a different host. So let's get the IP address. ifconfig. This is in Linux, Windows in ipconfig. This is ifconfig. Linux. Okay, what is my IP address? 192.168.23. So that is my IP address, 192.168.23. Okay, so I'm going to connect to that one from here. So what can I do? Just create a new connection plus like that. So I can give any name here. Okay, let's say DB, let's say TNH. I already have a connection, but I'm just demonstrating. TNH19DBCN2 connection to any name. And I'm going to give a user. Okay, let's connect as right away sys. I'm going to connect as sys. And if I am sys, I need to select the role sysdb. Otherwise, sys can't connect. No, that you know, system database administrator. And my password. Okay, let me give the password. Now here, this is the very important. This is the connect string. Now I'm going to make connect string. So because there are different options here, I can, you may remember last day when you connect into the Oracle Autonomous Cloud, we use Cloud Wallet. But now it's not cloud. This is not a local database I'm connecting, but in a different host. Got it? So therefore, I can right away give the details here. So I am not in local host. What is my IP? 192.168.100. I guess 23. That was the IP, right? Yeah, 192.168.123. So I gave that IP, and my port is it 1.22? No. It will be 1.2.
1.
Yeah, 1.22. Taken the yeah.
So
And
1.23, sir. 100. 168, 123. Host name,
IP address 23. Sorry. 1, not 100. Yeah, 1.23. You are correct. Not 100. 1.20. Thanks. Okay. So my port is 1.22. What is my database? TNS19DB. So I had to give that database. This one, TNS19DB. So TNH19DB. So that is all. So I am making my connect string here. That's what I am doing. Username, password, host, and 1.22. Anyways, going to go with the TCP. That's the default page. So we can do a test here, whether it's working or not. We can test it. It says success because it works, because I gave the correct information. But remember, if you are trying this one, there's some additional step that you have to do. Can anyone tell me what is that? Will it work? Now, if you try it, will it work for you at once like this? Try all.
I think we have to configure in VirtualBox.
Let's say VirtualBox is up and running, database, everything is up and running. You have this environment, make a database is up and running. That is okay. Then you had a thumb. Now I am
Connection
jumping.
enable.
Yeah, go ahead.
Enable can a remote connection.
Oh, RDP. Okay, then I make RDP. I'm not using Windows RDP connection. Now here directly, I am trying to go over what.
Same network, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Because yes. So therefore, the connection method that I'm going to use is a basic connection here, but it will do a SSH connection between. SSH but the requirement is this. Now in Linux, it will block this port. The port block 1.22 port. It won't allow you to come in because that is in Linux. No, but there's a firewall. Firewall can block by default. So what you have to do, you need to enable that port in the firewall. If it work with that way. So we have to go to applications, and here there's option called Sundry and firewall. This is the firewall. Sundry and firewall. Okay, and click that one. The firewall down now, but I think my firewall should be up and running. Down now, you have to start that process. Firewall, fail to connect. My sensor service has been my firewall down. So I will let you try that out. Okay, try go to Sundry, right? Make a Google in Sundry, click firewall, and if you get that error, what we have to do? Firewall processing up on. Right? System start firewall. The command Linux up and we just have to give a public port. It's a port kill option. Then 1.22 then it will enable that port for you. And you have to save that. Once you save it, again it won't ask you, it will allow you to connect. I think when you do the practicals, you will need this connection. Now, if you are enabling this one in Linux, definitely you will have assignment practical. So therefore, you need to have it. Okay, I will let you as exercise. Try but you can try it out. So I told you the options, try it out and make the connection. Got it? In my case, I have done that. So that's why it's successfully connected. And I can just click connect, no problem. Then it will connect like that. It will get the appropriate connections I have, this connect string I have passed, and when I say connect, it will connect and it will open up me the connection. My connection was just that. TNH DBCN2. That was my connection. This is the connection. So it is open for me.
So is it okay to do practical in Docker image?
Windows?
Yes.
Yeah, no
Windows.
problem, no problem,
Okay.
no problem. Either place you can do, no issues. I'm just telling in case you are trying. Wherever place, no problem. Even in local Windows, you put a database, whatever, doesn't matter. But one thing to remember, in production, you don't get Windows, it's in Linux. So it's okay if you are finding issues, yes, go ahead on Windows, but always try to adapt Linux with Oracle. Okay, right. So we are done now in that connection also established, right. Now let's proceed. Any more questions you can ask? Okay, if you don't have any question, let's continue. Now, the user has connected. Connection has one connected. Now we are going to continue our session. Okay, he has connected. He wanted to type this command. What is my server process? Japur. My user namat teka server process hatenne tena tama. So you want to make a connection and you want to make a command. What is the command? Select emp number. Very simple command. E name, employee name, salary from emp. What is the command? Abi ඔය හදමු බලන්න මේ table එක. Okay, let's create this table. අපේ connection එකක් තියෙනවනේ මෙතන. Yeah, I'm in sys connection. Okay, hari හදමු. Right. I'm going to say create table. My table name is emp number, data type එක number, comma e name එක character, varchar2. I'm going to give 20 characters for that, and the third column is salary, and that's going to be a number type. Okay, I think we are good. Yeah. Table. Any mistake? Create table employee number. Create table emp number type number, and e name salary. Yeah, what's the mistake? Can anyone tell me?
Extra bracket.
Extra bracket. Good. Okay. Table clear. So let's insert a record. Insert into my emp values. Let's put employee number. Okay, let's put 1. It's okay. ABC, and this has to be in double quotes since it is character type. And my salary, let's put 1000. 1000. Okay. Got it. Right, that's fine. And you commit it. Commit. No problem. We'll confirm the record. Last time someone asked that the git commit and database commit. Okay, I think I didn't answer that one. Git commit, those are actually Git, and those are source code repositories, no? SCM scale again, SCN. So those are maintaining our developers code actually. So when you make a commit on Git and GitHub and GitOps and those source code repositories, what's going to happen? Your particular developer's program will get check-in. It's known as a check-in process. Again, repository code include merge merge is a different thing. It will commit that one. So that is a developer's code commit. That's what it means by for the Git commit. Metana commit can record there. Table record there. Process. Okay, that's all. because in Git's repository we have a branching strategy, master branch, end user branch, a sub branch, feature branch, those things are there. Okay, so now we have just create the table and we have insert one record. Make a select kernel. Now we need to practically see what's going to happen. If select command, we know what's going to happen. Output so select employee name. Now I just want to select, right? I'm just typing select star from. Very simple, star from EMP. So this will give me the whatever available record at the moment. Select, yeah, mistake, right? Select star from EMP. Which you give on just, okay, simple record, only one record is there. But we know that this is happening. But as an administration level, this is not we are interested in. As a developer, you might want to get the record, but as a DB, as an administrator, even for a developer, it is important to know what's happened behind. It will just give the output, but even for a developer, you want to run a better query, optimized query. For anyone interested in Oracle database, they need to know what's happened behind. Basics දැනගන්න ඕන. Otherwise, troubleshooting is a problem. Now, what happened here? Okay, let's get back to our architecture diagram. I have a diagram like this. So make it dala. Let's put it here. Okay, I am not going to redraw it here. So this, let's put it here. Now, what was our command? Select employee number name. Where is that EMP table? In this architecture, where is that EMP table? Just let me know.
In DBF5?
Here. We can just simply insert a text box and we can just say, yeah, we can simply put a text box like this. We have the filter like we can say, okay, EMP is here. Okay. That is my table. That is in my DBF file, EMP. Then what is the requirement? We are selecting, no? Now, selecting means what? Reading this particular table and insert into where? Now you have a certain knowledge, no? Try to implement, try to reflect on the knowledge. Select Korea Gandhi. Right. What is the end?
Database controller?
Memory memory structures, correct, right? So out of the memory structures, we have make up shared pool we learn. This is the first one is shared pool. Let me just put it that. This one is shared pool. Okay. SHP shared pool. Okay, that is shared pool. And share pool එකකට කොහරද දැන් මෙන්න මෙතන database buffer cache. මොකද වෙන්නේ එතකොට මෙතන record එක එනවා. What is the record? EMP number is 1, මොකද්ද නම ABC, okay, no, then it will come there. That's going to happen. This select command, because now user has connected, no? User has connected. And the Japura server process is ready to service, give the service for those all commands. All command. Now user has issued a select command. Now Japura server process need to read data from where? From the DBF file, from the EMP table, and insert it to the buffer cache. Now this is done by which process? The server process, the user server process, Japura server process. Remember, right? Server process is responsible for processing any command issued from that client session. Yeah, ගහන command ඔක්කොම process කරලා දෙන්න ඕන. Database එකට ගිහිල්ලා query කරලා ගන්න ඕන. Server process reading data from the DBA files done by server process. Got it? Now our record is here. මෙතන ආවට පස්සේ very simple නේ. So once it arrives here only we can get this output. එතකොට output again. Got it? Very basic. Now once the record arrives to the buffer cache, then only we get the output. එතකොට දැන් මෙතන අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕන තව දෙයක් තියෙනවා. What is the purpose of the buffer cache? Now you can tell me. What is the purpose of the buffer cache? මොකද කරන්නේ? It maintains the records which are read or taken from DBF files. ඒක තමයි මෙයා කරන්නේ. It's a placeholder for the records taken from DBF file. That is what it does. Buffer cache එක තමයි ඔක්කොම තියාගන්නේ. Clear? Okay. Let's continue. හරි දැන් record එක ගත්තානේ. ඔතනින් නවත්තන්න නැහැ. ගහනවා update එක. Update EMP set. Salary වෙනස් කරනවා ලොකු increment එකක් දෙනවා එක salary 10000ක් කරනවා. Okay? ගැහුවා එක. දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? update එකක් ගැහුවානේ. එතන ගහන්න පුළුවන් no problem, but let's try to understand. Now tell me what's going to happen. ඔයගොල්ලන් දැන් තියෙන දැනුම ටෙස්ට් කරන්න බලන්න. මොකද වෙන්නේ දැන් database එකේ? Now if you run that command, okay, එක මෙතන ගහමුකෝ ගන්න. Okay. Let's say we run that command. මොකද වෙන්නේ මෙතන මේක ගහපු command. Update EMP set salary. ඔය ගැවුවා කියන්න මෙතන. Very simple. No, we run that command. It will say one record updated. ආයෙ මේක කොරි කරොත් එimhe දැන් කියයි 10 නෙමෙයි 10000 කියලා. That is simple. අපි දන්නවා වැඩ output එක එනවා කියලා. That is okay, pretty obvious, but that is not we are interested. We are interested ඕක දෙන්න කලින් පිටිපස්සේ වැඩ ටිකක් කරන්න ඕනේ. නිකම්ම output දෙන්න බෑ. මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? Just tell me. කොහෙන් ආයේ තියෙන දැනුමක් ඇදලා අරන් කියන්න බෑ පොඩ්ඩක්.
I think before update we have to take previous version of the record.
Yeah, track කරන්න ඕනේ. Before image එක තියා ගන්න ඕනේ. Very good attempt. තව මොනවද කියන්න පුළුවන්? Okay, one point. Before image අපි එක පැත්තකින් දිනවා. අපි ඒකට කියමු. හරි. අපි කියමුකෝ old image කියලා. Old image එක track කරගන්න ඕනේ. ඇයි roll back එහෙම වුණොත් එහෙම? හරි. මේක 1000 කියලා තියා ගන්න ඕනේ. Correct. Old image එක තියා ගන්න ඕනේ. තව මොනවද වෙන්න ඕනේ? දැන් මේ original state එකනේ. Then ඒක valid? No, it's not valid now. Why? It has made it 10,000. 10,000. එක commit කරාද?
No.
Commit කරාද? නෑ. අන්න එහෙනම් intermediate state එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට අපි කියනවා dirty state එකක් කියලා. Why? It's not in the original, no committed. Neither in the original, no committed. Intermediate state. So because of that we are telling it's a dirty record. Dirty record. Intermediate. So this is what going to happen. 10000 කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. Old image එකක් තියෙනවා. එච්චරද? No, මේක නම් ඔයගලන්ට කියන්න බෑ. Oracle database further is doing a very important thing. Is going to the redo log buffer. මොකද කරන්නේ? Change එක track කරනවා. මෙතනත් දාගන්න is going to make 1000 here and 10,000 එහෙම දානවා. What is the body by tracking? Marking the old value and the new value as redo data. Because in Oracle database, the purpose of redo log buffer is to what? Track changes to the records that are happening in the buffer cache. Track changes to the records that are happening in the buffer cache. මෙතන වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද change එක? මෙතන mark කරගන්නවා. Mark කරගන්නවා. Okay. And one very important thing is what? For every transaction, Oracle mark in another thing called SCN. SCN. SCN කියලා අපි කියන්නේ system change number. Why SCN? He has to maintain, identify each transaction as a unique one. Unique one. And transaction can update කරන්න. Even a select is a transaction. මේකට SCN එකක් දානවා. මේකට SCN එකක් දානවා. පොඩි වෙනසක් තියෙනවා අප්ඩේට් එකේ මේකේ but SCN. What is SCN? I think in the channel I have explained in more detail. ඔය SCN ඔයගොල්ලන් ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕන නම් channel එකට ගිය ගමන් ටක් ගාලා මේකේ ගොඩාක් දාලා දෙන SCN වලට I have put I think continuously sessions 4ක් යනවා channel එකේ. If you go here in the playlist, you have Oracle portal එකේ මේ පල්ලෙහාට ගියාම I have explained SCN is very critical one. You can see මෙතන ඉඳන් non-Maltesian architecture 23, 25, 26 මේ session 4ම it's about system chain numbers. If you want more detail, you can go there. But for the time being, we touch upon very basic system chain number. It is a unique number. It's a monotonically increasing. It can sequence value number. Chronological. Monotonical and chronological. Monotonical කියන්නේ increase in sequence. Chronological කියන්නේ increase with time. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? දැන් example එකක් ගත්තොත් at 9 pm, let's say at 9 pm I had the SCN number 78,000. මේක ලොකු number එකක්. And at 9:05 pm I cannot have a SCN number called 77,000. I mean, you can't have a lower number than the above one. 77,000 something. 9:05 is a advanced time. So definitely it should be a larger number than 78,000, maybe 78,900 or something like that. It increases in sequence actually. But it's chronological and monotonical number. SCN number. We can check the SCN number. බලන්න පුළුවන් database එකේ. Even current SCN number we can get it, but we don't need to go that much of detail for the time being. අපි මේ component interaction එක තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා. We do understand that one. Got it? So each transaction there is a SCN number. Therefore, for this update, for this select, there's a SCN number. ඔය SCN එක මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ හැම තැනම track වෙනවා. මෙතනත් දානවා SCN. එකම SCN එක යන්නේ. For this transaction it maintain this SCN. Here also it maintain this SCN. හැම තැනම ඔක mark කරනවා SCN track කරනවා. Very important. It's tracking that. System change number. SCN. මෙතනත් track කරනවා, මෙතනත් track කරනවා. Okay. System change number. Got it? Right. So now update product critical. What are they got? Mark the buffer as dirty, mark it old image, update kara. Redo log buffer. Is it clear up to that place? Step
when will those are stored in log file?
පල්ලෙහාට එන්නේ නේද? මෙහාට එන්නේද? හරි. අපි එතෙන් එමු. එහෙට එනවා දැන්. දිගටම මේ වටේම ගහනවා, රවුම ගහනවා, right? Don't worry. මේ ටික clear නේ. මෙතන නිකන් ආවි okay. Okay no.
Yes sir.
Okay. Let's continue our transaction. දැන් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? ඔන්න update කරා user satisfied ගහනවා commit කියලා ගහුවා. Now what's going to happen? මෙතන නම් කිසි අවුලක් නැහැ. commit ගහපු ගමන් මොකද කරන්නේ? commit complete එච්චරයි. But we are not interested about that. That is not what we are interested. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? Commit ගහනවා. What will happen in Oracle database? Remember one thing, commit will never update DBF files. There is, everybody thinks in that way, no? Gave the commit, yeah, DBF file load. That's what understanding. SQL Server, DB2, Mongo, but Oracle is a kind of a different abnormal. No? So in Oracle, commit command will never update DBF files. What it will do? Commit command, that's what going to happen. Let's put it here, put it down, arrow. Let's put a arrow here. Okay, we can use this one. Commit. Mark කරලා තියෙනවන්නේ. via log writer මොකද වෙන්නේ? via log writer background process, it will update the log file. That is what's going to happen. ඔන්නෝක තමයි commit එකකින් කරන්නේ. When a commit happens, log writer background process fires. එයා වැඩ කරන්න ගන්නවා. Trigger වෙනවා. With what? All the changes in the redo log buffer will be updated to the log file. Log file. We know log file there is not only one. අපි දවසට බැලුවා තුනක් තිබ්බ minimum. We have 3 log files. So why I have marked as current log file? That is a file that currently log writer writing in. That is why current file. Status of the file. So if you go down, you can see log file මෙහෙම වර්ග තුනක් තියෙනවා. Minimum 3 log files. So redo log buffer log writer is writing into this file. It is known as the current file. Right? So that is current file. So commit command will do what? It will write the changes from database buffer cache to current log file. Got it? හරි. A commit. දැන් මෙහෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් දානවා. Let me put it. Now this is Japura user නේ. දැන් එනවා තව user කෙනෙක්. අපි දාමු Japura 1 කියලා දාමු ඕගන්නේ නැහැ. Japura 1. මෙයාට ඕන වෙනවා අරක select කරන්න. It comes and select. Select අපි ගහනවා okay. Select salary from EMP. Then I love where EMP number. අරකම දෙනවා. 1. දැන් මොකද දාත්තේ? දැන් මොකද database එක වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? What was the original value? Original value of the salary was what? Here. 10 තිබ්බේ. Now what has happened? දැන් මොකද කරලා තියෙන්නේ? 1000ක් තියෙන්නේ දැන්. නෑනේ. 10,000. All right. Commit කරලාද? Yes. So the theory says what? Any subsequent users after committing, they should get the updated data. Clear no? ඒ කියන්නේ Japura 1 තමයි select command එකට මොකක්ද දෙන්නේ? 1000 1000 දෙන්නේ. කියන්න බා 1000 1000 දෙන්නේ. කියන්න බා මේකට output එක මොකක්ද දෙන්නේ? 1000 1000. කියන්න බෑද ඒක? What was the theory? If any user made the change and make a commit, okay, all other users should get the updated data. And මොකද්ද කරේ මෙයා 1000 කරලා commit උස් කරානේ. That's true. Now Japura is a different user. Japura 1 is another user. He want to get the same record. ඒතකොට යාර මොකක්ද දෙන්න ඕනේ? Very clear නේ. 1000 එන්න ඕනේ. This is what going to happen. ඔයගොල්ලෝ confusion නැත්නම් මේක. I mentioned in the database, what I mentioned in the database, it will not update the DBF files. So you may wonder then how is going to take 10,000? ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයක් වුණාද නැද්ද? ප්‍රශ්නයක් වුණාද නැද්ද ඒක? දැන් කොහොමද 10,000 ගේන්නේ? Now initially we understood Oracle selects data from database files. No. Now it's going to select the data from DBF file, right? That is where the EMP table is. Now one fellow has committed and changed the data. The change is here, but may not be here at the moment, but may be here as well. Let's see. But as per the explanation, what I did, commit will never update DBF files. So because of that, and because of commit, it may not be here. But in the different mechanism, it may be here. That we will learn. But as for the time being, for the explanation up to now, it cannot be here. Or the commit. But This output, it gives 10,000. ඕක කරලා බලන්න පුළුවන් මෙතන. තව user කෙනෙක් connect කරාම දෙන්නේ latest data. Now what's going to happen here? Oracle will have to read the change because redo log buffer doesn't have the complete record. Make a සම්පූර්ණ record එක නෑ. I mentioned it tracking the changes only. So what is the change? Salary only. So it has to get the update from the log file and rest of the record from the DBF file because employee table rest of the data is here and merge both. මේ දෙපැත්තම කියවලා තමයි අර user දෙන්න වෙන්නේ. Read the change from the current log file, read the rest of the record from this DBF file, merge it together and give it to the second user. Because it may not be in the DBF file as per explanation up to now. තේරෙනවද? කෑල්ලක් මෙතනින් ගන්නවා, කෑල්ලක් මෙතනින් ගන්නවා. How Oracle get to know? Because Oracle knows this SCN මේකට තව SCN ගන්න දෙන්නේ. This SCN is a SCN which is coming after this. මේකට පස්සේනියක් කියලා දන්නවා because it's time එක වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. Time is going up no. So it's a higher SCN number than this. So Oracle definitely knows there has been a change happened to the same transition previously. මේක දන්නවා track කරන්න පුළුවන් because we mentioned it maintains the SCN uniquely in the buffer cache එකේ හැම transition එකක්ම uniquely maintain කරනවා කියලා නම්කෝ. Okay, so for the time being it need to take data partly from here and partly from here, but we understand it is additional work. Why is additional work? Because this is a extra input output read. Oracle have to read data from this disk. So instead of reading from one place, Oracle has to do a 2 times reading. So performance wise is not a good practice. It's not a good practice. Then what we should do? As an administrator, we need to configure the database in such a way, immediately after commit, it should inform the DBF files, yes, this record is committed here. Therefore, you also have to update, yes, it is committed. Yes, record is committed to the log file. So you better get updated. This fellow is committed now. But that doesn't say record need to be transferred from here to here. There's an additional process. Try to understand this. There's an additional process called checkpoint. Checkpoint checkpoint process. What does checkpoint do? Checkpoint is a time-to-time process. Time-to-time process which checks the log file and looks for all the updated data, all the committed data, and inform the DBF files. These things are committed now, and if such committed data in the buffer cache, මෙතන තියෙනවනේ change එක. ඒකත් මම flush කරලා ඔයාලට දෙන්නම් කියලා මෙහෙට කියනවා ඒක. Checkpoint will flush the record from the DB buffer cache via DB writer. මේ තියෙන DB writer process එක. Checkpoint will trigger DB writer and it will ask, okay, this particular record is committed here. You better take it to the DBF file because I am going to sync up these two together. Current log file, the log file content and the DBF file. So after that, what's going to happen? The log file committed information and the DBF file committed information will get synced up. So that is how Oracle database commit process works. It is not just going to update the commit. After the commit, the DBF file is not going to update. It is happening via checkpoint process. Okay, but you need to understand a bit. First time you may not. You need to do a lot of readings to understand as well. But if you don't understand, I can re-explain. But before that, if you don't get it, just let me know. I'll explain it again.
Is CKPD is working like interval process?
Exactly. It's a time-to-time process, interval process. We can configure. Ekata parameters compare. Exactly. There are parameters. Database tuning only aneka. Because more the delay, more the gap we commit, more the gap we maintain after the commit, it will be a performance issue. So database administrator has to tune the database in such a way immediately after commit, then to update the DBF files via checkpoint process. Tune that, and again that depends on database to database as well. I'll explain that further. Try to get this understanding. Log writer, what it does? Committing data from redo log buffer to redo log file. Log writer, that is clear. DB writer, what it does? Flushing data from database buffer cache to relevant DBF files. That's what DB writer does. Okay. Checkpoint, what it does? Look at the committed data and look at the DBF file and do the sync up if anything is missing. Because if this fellow says I have committed this record, if the DBF file is telling I don't know about it, no, that can't be. You better sync up. It's not going to stop there. Checkpoint will tell the control file as well. Okay, now I have synced this. Control file will inform karma. Because control file has to know what is happening in the database as of now. Last checkpoint. Got it? Okay, let me explain the other part as well. Clear, now the question is this. Commit will not cause DB writer to write data from database buffer cache to database file. Commit will always write data from log writer to log file. Similarly, there are other conditions for DB writer to write. මේ process එකත් වැඩ කරන conditions තියෙනවා. මේක interval එකක් කියලා ඔයගොල්ලෝ අහුව that's true. This is a time to time process. We can configure that in seconds. Problem මේ configure කරන්න පුළුවන්. Minutes වල පුළුවන්. Got it. And similarly, DB writer also there are conditions. And I mentioned earlier, a checkpoint will cause DB writer to write data from database buffer cache to database file. තව conditions තියෙනවා. මම තව condition එකක් කියනවා. When there are no free space, if the buffer cache space is running out, then what's going to happen? Make a gigabytes waliin compare. We can configure gigabytes, we can configure megabytes. The database buffer cache depends on the load of the database, we can configure it. Now there comes a time is running out of space. So before running out of space, what's going to happen? DB writer, we clear some records from database buffer cache to database file. And එතන පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මොන records clear කරන්න? Now there are records which are always in use. Always in use. Again, people are continuously using select කරනවා, update කරනවා. And now those records he can't flush. Those records DB data will never flush. But there are records that people are rarely using. Again, they may commit කරපු එකක්. Tell me you understanding? If a record is committed, that means the transition is completed. No. Now, may transition you're right. Complete. So therefore, there is no point of hanging into the record in the buffer cache. So that record definitely DB writer is going to flush it from database buffer cache to DBF file temporarily. Because there is no relationship between the commit and the DB writer. But DB writer is an independent process. So because the committed data is no point of just maintaining in the buffer cache, it will just temporarily flush to the DBF files. Okay, now you get one information. So further information committed data in a different way coming from database buffer cache to DBF file. We are DB writer. So checkpoint what it has to do, look at the log file, check whether it's committed, look at the SCN number, match the SCN number with the DBF file data and sync it up. Commit because it's a record which is not used for long time. Least recent used records, most recent used records. LRU and MRU algorithm. We can see now if you look at inside of this particular buffer cache, it will look like this. This is a one buffer in the buffer cache. Each buffer we have two ends. LRUN and the MRUN. What is LRUN? Least recently used. That means when you select a record, it will put to the mid of the buffer. Method ending. If records have been used for a long time, make a select update, select update, then what's going to happen? It will always move to the MRU. MRU is most recently used. So if a record is heavily used continuously for long time, that will not get flashed. Flash karakato ta illa. I am input output karla I read karanda. So it takes time. So if a record is using for long time, it will not be eligible to get cleared from the buffer cache. Clear. But a record like committed record, which is always trying to go to the LRU least recently, a record commit right. So therefore, if a record becomes a LRU record, it is eligible to get cleared from the buffer cache. Flash when ready. Got it? So that's why committed data, most of the cases, DB writer will be flushing to the DBF files. So it's a checkpoint that the sync up run with the Now, how it looks like. Damn,
So MRU එකයි LRU එකයි මේ Oracle database වලට විතරක් specific වෙච්ච දෙයක්ද?
Exactly. එයාගේ මේ specific technique එක. අපි ඒකට කියනවා TC algorithm කියලා. Touch count algorithm. TC. Initially නම් Oracle unique තමයි. දැන් නම් I think several databases are Google big table වගේ අතක පාවිච්චි කරනවා. Touch count algorithm. Touch count. Again, touch means if a record is used for certain time, it is continuously maintained in the cache. Not used. Touch when not used, it becomes LRU, least recently. Hurry. Then මොකක්ද තත්ත්වය මේක ගැන අදහස. This is very fundamental explanation. එකක් කරන්න. ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ level එකට තේරෙන්න එකක් තමයි කරන්නේ. We are not going to go into deep dive here, but very fundamental. Any Oracle database user has to have this knowledge. Any questions you can ask? Okay, I think now you got the idea. When is going to write to the log file and when is going to write to the DBF file and what's going to happen with the checkpoint and what's going to happen with the DB writer. So may blocks the we know about the database buffer cache, we know about the log buffer cache. Right? Now if you go down further, this is the log file mechanism. Current log file is there. No? So this log file, there's a particular size. With 100 MB, so it's going to run out of space. So then it needs to go to the next file. Make a cycle go right. Make a rotate. Cyclic passion, log files are getting rotated. But it is not overwrite the back. Because now a question if this file get overwritten, now if the committed data is here, problem no. Oracle will not allow that. Oracle wait till the checkpoint get complete to allow the file to be overwritten. Oracle can allow because checkpoint complete means all the committed data has been synchronized with the DBF file. After that one, it is allowed to the overwrite. Conditions. Got it? So එකක් තියෙනවා මම මේක explain කරමු නැති because we learn now database buffer cache and log shared pool. අපි එකක් බලමු. එකපාරට මේ පැත්තට පැන්න මේක පැත්තකින් ඉඳලා that's okay, right? මේ architecture එක ඇඳලා පොඩි description එකක් කරන්න ගියොත් එහෙම පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. So if you have any questions, you can listen to this video again. Recording is there. Because I think we have done today is the 7th session. 7 to 8 sessions allocate 15 hours. So I will try to get another session Even if not, I'll give my contact number as well, so you can reach me out on WhatsApp as well for any questions. And okay. Right, let's continue the other one. Now, our select query. අපි යමුකෝ select query එකට. මේ query එක select query එක මේ backend එකේ ඉගෙන ගත්ත වැඩ ගන්න කොහොමද කියලා. But still එකපාරම query එකක් කොහොම run කරන්න බෑ. In the backend we learn, but before that there is something called compilation කියලා එකක් වෙන්න ඕන. Compilation. අපි මේකට කියනවා any SQL query before fetching data it has to go to මොකද්ද pass fetch FETCH actually අපි දෙවෙනි එක ගමු execute කියලා pass execute and fetch කියලා ගමු execute and fetch any query update වෙනවා select වෙනවා වැඩ වෙනවා මොකද pass එක කියන්නේ first step on pass check the syntax දැන් අපිට errors ආවේ curly bracket එක වැරදුනා කියලා error එකක් ගාව syntax check වෙන්න ඕනේ okay then check the column names columns තියෙනවනේ salary ඒව හරි වෙන්න ඕනේ column names okay column names ඊළඟට තව
Data type.
sorry
Data type.
data type check වෙන්න ඕනේ data types need to be checked තව තියෙනවා privileges check වෙන්නත් ඕනේ අපි දන්නේ select privilege එක තියෙනවද කියලා user ඔන්න ඕ වෙන්න ඕනේ at the end of these things Oracle මොකද්ද කරන්නේ එයා හදනවා something called execution plan Oracle මේක theory එක කරලා ඒ සමහරවිට execution plan Oracle creates execution plan so this plan is going to get executed මේක තමයි execute වෙන්නේ according to the plan only it will fetch the data එහෙනම් තමයි step එක යන්නේ so any query Oracle will generate a execution plan හැබැයි මේක හදලා නවතින්නේ නැහැ මොකද කරන්නේ Oracle going to store this plan in a place කොහෙද මේ තියෙන library cache එකේ දානවා in the shared pool there's a sub buffer area called library cache LBC means library cache it is going to store the execution plans in the library cache ඇයි ඒ reuse කරන්න ආයේ ඒ query එකම ගැහුවොත් because it takes time to generate the plan again so it preserves the plan save කරලා තියන් ඉන්නවා library cache එකේ මේ යට තියෙන මොකද්ද data dictionary cache this is nothing much cache from the system.dbf file system.dbf file මේ අන්ඩු එක මම point කරේ තව ෆයිල් එකක් තියෙනවා අපි දන්නවා system.dbf file කියලා it is a cache why system.dbf file cache because the data dictionary Oracle data dictionary is there in the system.dbf file I data dictionary එක because column name කවුරු හරි කියන්න එපා now who knows about this table has this column name who knows that these are the correct data types who knows about the privileges එක්කෙනෙක් දැනගන්න ඕන කවුද දන්නේ ඔක්කොම data dictionary is the place where the master data are stored for every table ඔක්කොම information user information ඔක්කොම තියෙන්නේ data dictionary so here we have a cache from the data dictionary in the DDC from system.dbf file so for server process to generate the execution plan it checks against the data dictionary cache column හරිද privilege හරිද ඔක්කොම check කරලා බලනවා it will generate the execution plan so having done the execution plan only it will allow the server process to continue to fetch the records to the buffer cache execute කරනවා කියන්නේ ඒකයි clear තේනවා එතකොට execution plan බලන්න පුළුවන් let me show you that one as well now for this query මේකට මට execution plan එක ගන්න පුළුවන් ඕන very simple now I executed one this one select our create table නේ අපි මේක කරමුකෝ හරි create එක නෙමෙයි අපි ගමු select එක okay මෙයා මේ select star එක ගමු මේකට I need to get the execution very basic one select employee select star හරි how do we get the execution plan now in the SQL developer we have option මෙතන තියෙනවා auto trace නැත්නම් එහෙම නැත්නම් we have tuning advisor කෙනෙක් පුළුවන් Peacock in the gun. Balloon, may they can balloon. Then explain plan kill option. We'll go there. Explain plan. Lazy. I think you can take it here. It says table access full. Table access full. Access EMP table. Cardinality 1. Cost is 2. A table access pool kiwi
full privilege theory.
Oh, no. Privileges name. Mama gave select star from mega. Select star from mega. Record.
Record document.
Move table like a scan around. Select star from entire table. So if I put a where clause, make a star inker lam where select EMP number. Make a carry guide a big karam. Select EMP number from EMP where EMP number equal we had one years. Right. For this one, let's see what's going to happen. Make a record and I don't have any indexes. So let's see what's going to happen. Select employee number from EMP where make a gamma execution plan. HQR table access full. That's true because there is no option for him. Now, what do you mean by a where? Where filter I need him to filter. Employee number 1. Record. Now, what do you mean by filtering? When I say filter, what is the shortest method? Index. I think you have learned indexing. Yeah. So index is what? When I run a where clause for that particular column, employee number, if there is an index, it will use the index for searching. Filter index rather than just doing the pool table scan, it will just apply that filtering condition and put to the index and it will do a faster reading. Indexing. But I don't have an index here. So let's try it. I'm going to insert another record. Insert into. Make a demo. Yeah. Let's put another record here. Okay, let's put employee number 2 Damu. Yeah, let's put another one 3. Okay, so now we are going to have 3 records. Okay, I'm going to change only the employee number. Commit okay, and committed. Now let's try to run that one and see. Then select employee number and make a then execution plan. Okay, let's check the execution plan now. Filtering put the filter. Now he has more records. Filter. Execution plan. What's happening in the query shows me in the execution plan. But yet full within there is no option of cost. What is the cost? What is the cost again? Anyone knows what is the cost in execution plan? Don't know. Cost again. We are telling for a particular given query, if the cost is abnormally high, we are telling it's a poor query. It's a performance on the if the cost is low, we are telling it's a better query. But make a record to record million tables check. Cost is what? It's just a measurement of a query performance. Time processing time it's just a value. Just a value. Value means it reflects how much memory it has used, how much processing time it has used, how much IO time it has used. Process cost. That's what cost is. So if a cost is very high, let's say 175 anything about 20, 10, local value, double figures. So that means it is a considerable one. For performance of the cost. But now here I have only 3 records, so therefore it says a very lower cost. but I can further reduce. මේක තව අඩු කරන්න පුළුවන්. එකකට ගේන්න පුළුවන් මේ. කොහොම කරොත්ද? Now for this query, let's say I want to improve the performance. What can I do? කියන්න බෑ. How can I improve the performance? දැන් මම උත්තරේ කලින් කිව්වා එකයි search query ගන්න යන්නේ. What can I do? මොකද ගන්න පුළුවන්? index එකක් හදුවා මොකද වෙන්නේ?
Search with other variables.
Searching other variables. මොකද I කියන්නේ?
Search with other records also. It means other column.
I can what do you mean by employee number when one plus and you're going to include a merge on? I can name මගේ එකක්ද?
With O operator.
You're going to change a condition, predicate එකක් දාන්න කියනවා. Condition එකක්. Yeah, that will actually make the execution plan much more complex. Performance improvement එකක් එන්නේ නැහැ. වාටික අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් employee number 1 O එහෙම එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. But that will just increase the execution plan. ඒ කියන්නේ length එක වැඩි වෙනවා. Performance improvement එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Very simple. Introduce the index. Index එකක් ගන්න. Right, මේ මෙයක් කරමුකෝ. Okay, let me do it like this. Create index default normal balance tree index එකක් හදනවා. Oracle there are different index types. So I'm going to create a balance tree index. I'm going to say create index. අපි දෙමු EMP IND කියලා. EMP IND. අපි දෙමු create index EMP IND on EMP. My table is EMP. Within bracket I am going to say what is my column. EMP number. Create index EMP IMP on EMP. Within bracket I am getting EMP number. Okay, let's try it. Alright, yeah, I ටික run කරා. It's okay. I just ran this one. Script run ගන්න දුන්නේ එහෙම නෙමෙයි මේ මට මේක විතර run කරන්න ඕන නම් there's option here run the command, but I mistakenly put this, but doesn't matter. I think index has been created, so you can see index created EMP ID. Index එක හැදුවානේ. Okay, now let's try this. ඉස්සෙල්ලා cost එක දැක්කා, ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඒ විදිහ දැක්කා filtering. Now I want to do this one. Select employee number and this, and earlier it was a full table scan. Now let's try the execution plan. බලමු මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා. දැන් full table scan එක තියෙන්නේ. දැන් මොකද උනේ? නෑ. දැන් full යන්නේ නෑ. Why? There's an index. මේ දැන් යා කියනවා මම index එක පාවිච්චි කරන්න. I have a better way. I'll do that. Look at the cost. ඩක් ගාලා 100% බැස්සා. ඉස්සර දෙකනේ දැන් එකට ගියා. Got it? So by introducing the index, we increase the performance 50%. 50%ක් වැඩි කරා. ඉතින් දෙකනේ තිබ්බේ. එකටම බැස්සා. Execution plan. Idea cover.
ඕක මේ දැන් අනිත් database වලත් තියෙනවද MySQL database වල?
Exactly. Any database will have execution plans. But the problem is this. The plan behavior is different from database to database. The way we tune the query also different to database because it depends on the underlying database architecture. Now, query optimization, query tuning වලින් Oracle beat කරන database එකක් නැහැ. That's not going to happen because that is people are getting this one. ඒගොල්ලෝ migrate කරනවා now, let's say because of cost concerns are there due to the cost එක අඩු කරන්න කියලා. People who are running on Oracle databases, they are going to migrate to AWS Postgres. So migrate karna. People who don't have that much of knowledge migrate karna. Then they are experiencing the query which is run while it was in Oracle. When it's go to Postgres, it takes 25 minutes. Double lot of video. Nothing to do. That's the nature of the database. Even in AWS, if you introduce the highest performance machine, you know, locuma server you can't get that performance. That's how the architecture. That's the Oracle is a manageable by design. And it's just true execution plan. Right? And there are tools to tune it up. Now here we are just touching upon basic theorum make can understand. We have many tools. Automatic automatic diagnostic monitoring, session history, lot of things are there. Oracle tuning tools are there, diagnostic pack, tuning packs, and AWR local report. So likewise, there are many things in Oracle. But I just want you to be familiar what is the execution plan and the architecture any questions you can ask. Make a execution plan. If you don't understand, you can ask me questions. I'll give you a nice tutorial. Make a share. I think should have that one. Yeah, I'll share this one in your LMS. Make all of Karand. There's a Oracle University tutorial. YouTube Oracle portal query optimization. I'm going to make it query optimization. I should have it. Yeah. SQL port query. Yes, I have it here. OBE make it tuning. Yes, I think tuning. OBE tuning advisor again. I think this one. I'll share this one too. I share the link. Now in this one, they are explaining practical but you need to have Oracle database. Oracle database SQL developer connect just go through it. They are explaining and doing the practical. Table hadala, index hadala, plan monitor and they explain. They are explaining. You can try it out. This is for your knowledge. You got the basic understanding. No? So they are explaining the plan, how the cost is working, all the things are there. I share this, you can try it out and get your knowledge updated. Tutorials all are free. These all are free. But doesn't matter, it will explain you the concept. Okay, any questions? Are we clear?
So is this using XML?
Oracle?
Yes, about the information.
Yeah, Oracle has a separate, they have JSON, jQuery, and XML. It has a separate XML database as well. When Oracle XML, it has. Now this is SQL. This doesn't use XML. But if you want for text data Korean and all, at the XML name then JSON JSON වල පස්සෙත් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා අනිත් එක. JSON also too old now. XML is old now, right? Now next one came JSON, Java Simple Online. But after that also there was another one, TypeScript. TypeScript. So those are things now is going. ये ඔක්කොම Oracle support करना true. Hari. Yeah. Any other questions you have? Okay, so I think we are okay with this explanation. I'll upload this one as well. LMS yes, that is that. So anything, any general question that you want to know? Because I'll try to have another session. At least for an hour. So that we can discuss further things. Even if there are issues in the assignment as well, you can discuss, because I just uploaded yesterday. You may not have time to go through it. So we'll have another session on next week for assignment discussion as well. And anything else you can ask. And I will leave my contact number also here, 0757 287062. So you can, I am here on WhatsApp as well. So other students also, they have groups and they are communicating. I mean, whenever, depending on the time I reply. And it's okay on WhatsApp, I can just chat now, even in meetings, I can just reply, that's okay. So you can use that number to communicate. All right, so are we okay then? Any other additional questions? No, we are done. I can further explain the architecture, but there's no point more. There's a limit that you have to know. And if you decide to continue career with Oracle, and I think Oracle long-term career partner, I mean, if you stay with Oracle, you are safe for the entire life because the giant vendor is not going to pour it out. But you need to learn well. That's what I am just trying to put the firm base for you. If you get this base, you can establish your career well. Architecture on the make a mission of Tamaru. Okay. Great. Now, so if you don't have any questions, so let's have it. I'll try to have another day. We'll have at least for 1 hour. And okay, then have a great time. Good night from here. Okay. Bye bye.